You know the game even got it like that. You gonna hype me up and make me catch a body like that. Cause I live for this, it isn't just a hobby like that. When they get my shit and play it, I ain't even gotta say it. They know. This week we're doing Drake's 2011 release. Take care.
Welcome to the Essential Albums Podcast, where three guys from 85 have a conversation about some of the biggest albums ever and forgotten favorites from yesteryear. We'll dig into an album's place in culture, discuss its merits, and decide if a record holds up and is worth your time. So join longtime friends Ryan, Anise, and myself, Gordon, as we dive into our favorite albums and relive some of the classics. All right, so this week, guys, we're talking about Drizzy. It's kind of a big one. I don't know who picked this one. I mean, it's probably one that would have made it on our list kind of unanimously, but
yeah, no, Ryan just mentioned Drake one day, so I'm like, all right, I put a Drake song in the list when I was putting all of our picks together. I was like, all right, Drake, throw him in there.
It kind of makes sense, you know. Canadian guys, Canadian podcasts, Canadian artists, but I don't know. Like I don't know where you guys come at. Who chose the album though? Like Take Care is my album, my Drake album. But did you?
I picked it just because it's like the reason I chose this one, it seemed like it was like the first one that like the first one was big too, and even the mixtape stuff, but this was like he arrived sort of thing. So it seemed like he's kind of half the album he's kind of rapping about his success. So it's like it's like that album where he kind of made it, and yeah, just seemed like the right one to start with at least.
Yeah, leading before this week, or I guess last week, whenever we were getting ready for this album, this was the one Drake album that I've listened to from beginning to end. The other ones I've heard like a lot of parts and songs from it, but from beginning to end, this was the only one. So I guess we can use that to kick off our first question. What's your relationship to Drake, since he's kind of been a presence and an omnipresent guy over the last 11, 12 years, you could say. Anise, what's your relationship to Drake?
I always feel like there's been I guess any Canadian would say this, there's like a special claim to Drake. Even when he was first coming out, I was more of a rock guy at the time. Like there was still a lot of rap music and pop music I liked, but he was sort of like, oh, it's Drake. He's kind of repping Toronto, because before we never, at least from a Canadian perspective, we never had a rapper that was actually famous in the U.S. You know, no disrespect. No disrespect to Shock Blair or Maestro or Cardinal Official, but Drake just seemed like it was a different level, right? Obviously, and so it just, I don't know. He just seemed like he had, not that, and his music was good, so it was easy to be a fan. So yeah, so I've just sort of always listened to Drake. When I was just going through my box looking for his CDs, I own the first three. I know that, and then after that, just sort of whatever he releases, I put on Spotify. He's always releasing stuff, so he always has something new to listen to. So I feel like I'm constantly listening to Drake. So, like, even it's hard not to listen to Drake pretty much in this day and age.
Yeah, he's got there.
I agree. I mean, the guys, I didn't even realize like how big his discography is, and like you always hear him on the radio. There's always seems like to be something new where he's featured on somebody else's track. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, like similar to Anise, I just thought of, oh, Drake, he's just like some pop artist. I didn't really give it too much thought until I heard Headlines. Actually, Headlines like really hooked me. I'm like, whoa, okay, this has got some stuff in it. And then I decided, okay, I should probably check out Drake. So I downloaded Take Care off a MediaFire link. You remember MediaFire? And actually, I had like the name of a website like in the title of every song. It was like it was like one of those cheap MediaFire links just to get you to go there. But I think eventually I downloaded on iTunes. Like, I don't know if that was a waste of money. Like, do iTunes albums, was that a period of time like people?
No, you can still. No, people still do it.
Is it Apple Music now?
No, you can. I think you can still buy specific albums.
Oh, like 99 cents a song.
Yeah, or like $10 for the album or whatever they charge.
I guess I don't know who's buying that. Nobody who has a Spotify anyway.
I have no idea how that works. I'm on the Spotify train for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Like I after getting this album, I kind of thought like, okay, he's like this more like emotional rapper who's got this like a deeper vibe to it. I don't know if that existed before this album, or if this album kind of like set the set the scene, not the scene, like gave him his. Did he get his like style from this, or like did this kind of set his style, or make him known for being that like emotional rapper guy?
Well, I'm not entirely sure like what his like from his first album or his playlist at least. It seems like it was just kind of like a mix of everything, like the songs he was kind of across the board.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like this era was also kind of opening up. Like you have 808s and Heartbreak from Kanye West, and then you have like Kid Cudi, and then of course from like The Weeknd would come out after that. So it kind of I don't know if what Anise might be able to answer this better. Was 808s and Heartbreak like a changing point for this kind of sound?
That was what year? 2008?
Eight, nine.
Yeah, it seemed like that was like influenced by Kid Cudi. That seemed like that was. I'm sure there someone who knows more than me. There's probably some like indie artists or something that were doing it. But the ones I remember hearing in the mainstream were like Kid Cudi and then that 808s, where they were kind of getting more into their emotional bag. And like we kind of talked about it with even 50 Cent jumped in his emotional bag for a couple songs, and it seemed like it was popping up more. But Drake seems like he's kind of in that. He's more like the R&B pop rap. He kind of like, it's almost like a genre mashing. It kind of reminds me of like, not to bring up his name, but some stuff that like R. Kelly was doing like in the late 90s, even where it's a
Doing
mix of
what?
singing,
On who?
singing, musically.
Right.
I don't know what Drake does in his personal life. I know what R. Kelly does. I hope it's not the same thing, but musically, where like especially like a Trapped in, like when you listen to Trapped in the Closet, it sounds like it could be a song on Take Care, you know, just even that sort of storytelling style and stuff,
Right.
where you sort of singing, rapping, kind of in between sort of thing. But yeah, but Drake, this was definitely like, yeah, Kanye did it, but it was sort of Drake was like his lane. He kind of sort of like the king of it at this point.
It almost seems like he has like a dial between rapping and singing, and he's just like floating between it. You know, it's just like riding that dial. It's really cool because he's a pretty good singer, and a lot of his like emotions come out through that. But then it's he can still like bust an insane verse all of a sudden. I think there's a couple points where all of a sudden Drake is like rapping really fast on the album. You're like, whoa, okay, right, you got it.
Or just they're straight up like they're like the straight up rap songs too, which are great, which are interspersed all over, right? So it's kind of good to get that mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I would say my relationship is probably a lot more casual. I would say it's probably changed over time. I remember, I don't know if it was like the like when. I'll probably mention 808s and Heartbreak quite a bit, but like I remember when I first started hearing Drake songs, it was like kind of like that 808s, like kind of that vibe, but it was more like at that moment 808s was kind of my least listened to Kanye album, so I was more into like the traditional kind of hip hop and stuff like that. And then the hype around him, there's always like a crazy buzz, but I wasn't sure, like I wasn't really listening to it, so it's kind of like I wasn't sure how to handle it. And then all of a sudden you see like Forever drops with like Eminem, Lil Wayne, and Kanye, and Drake is on it too. And it's like, okay, this guy's like on a whole other level. I should probably start paying attention to him. But I never really did. It was kind of like that weird middling thing. Like you have the jokes, like the Crystalia joke crying in the shower, things like that. But then over time, it's just like, there's so much good stuff, and he changes things up. And then he drops like, those more like aggressive or hard, like hip hop songs and stuff like that, like 0 to 100. And you're like, okay, yeah, this guy, you got to pay attention to him. And the fact that he's able to cross those genres so well, like Kanye West kind of tried his best to do it on like 808s and like stuff that comes out after, but Drake just like nails it. So you have to pay attention to him.
Yeah, because he's coming more from like the singer perspective, where it's kind of easier to flow, whereas it's harder for Kanye to become a good singer. Not his voice has improved or whatever you feel about his voice, but Drake has a great voice. He could have just been a pop singer if he really wanted to be.
Yeah, it's true. Are you saying it's easier to rap than it is to sing?
No, but it's for someone who can sing, it's probably easier to jump into rapping.
That's right.
Because you don't have a voice and you're musical. You just have to start rhyming and get the flow.
Yeah, and get rid of the notes, and then you're all good.
Yeah, and well, Drake does a good job of like mixing flows. He has some that are more musical, where it kind of flows nicely, and some that are more harsh. And I don't know. I think he mixed up his vocal and the tone of his voice and everything enough and the cadence and all that.
Even when he's like just rapping, not doing the rap sing thing, like Headlines is a great example. I know this about Headlines because I learned how to sing it. There's like these little tone changes where he'll be doing a bunch of lines, and like he'll shift up a little bit or shift down, and they're not like like notes on the staff. It's just like he'll bring it up or bring it down, or it might actually be notes on the staff because it's Drake, but
Yeah.
it's not like a melody. So, but it's a really cool way of like giving shape to rhymes
Hmm.
just by changing the pitch of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we can get into the album a little bit. I'll ask first, how often is this album in your rotation, right?
Well, the whole album, not often. I mean, it's like whole afternoon kind of thing. um, I mean, it's a good, but it is good, like, because if you want to get into the zone, like, if you put it on for the afternoon, you're in this vibe the whole time. Like, there's occasionally harder songs, but not for too long, and then you're just like in this like kind of chill vibe the whole time. But that doesn't happen that often. It's just pretty long. Headlines, I bust it all the time because I love actually singing and playing that on the guitar. And then that usually actually headlines is often where I would start this album because I love that song so much. So yeah, I might listen to the patch of songs after that more than anything else.
Yeah. How about you, Anise?
Well, I listen because I'm always listening to Drake because he always has new stuff coming out. So it's like it's hard, you know what I mean? Like there's always something new from Drake. So there's not really a need to go back. But if I do go back, it's generally this album if I'm going to be listening to an album. But I don't know. It's more like if there's a specific late night where you're the DD and you're driving home at like 2 a.m. and you throw on Take Care just
Nice.
for that vibe. It's like the perfect late night driving. So it's sort of that sort of vibe for me. I listened to it a lot when it came out, and I was telling this to Gordon earlier, and this will go to my often listening to this, but I almost had two eras with this album because I listened to it a lot when it came out because I bought it, you have it in the car, you're playing it all the time. And then I also listened to it a lot when I got divorced. It was my divorce album. So
Right.
3 years ago, I was listening to it like daily. But yeah, no, now it's just kind of sparse. It's usually if I'm going to throw on a Drake album and not have to think about it, it'll be this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's like your go-to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would say it's this album as a whole, not very often. I mean, Drake is just, you hear, especially being in an hour away from Toronto, like there's so much Drake on the radio all the time. So they'll throw some older songs. I mean, not necessarily deep cuts, but some stuff you haven't heard in a while. And then they'll also play, like if he's popular on a remix, like for example, like Lemon, I didn't know, I thought that was just a Drake song, but it was just like a remix with him on it. But I heard it so often that I assumed it was that. So usually I just rely on the radio, kind of what's new. And then I'll just casually go through playlists every once in a while. And that's kind of my Drake exposure.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about it while listening to it through the last week. I'm like, there's like half of these songs you could hear on the radio today, like just and you wouldn't even think twice about it because they play them all the time. They play old Drake all the time.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is that a Canadian thing? Do we have it because of the CanCon rules? Do we have a little bit of a twisted view of how popular Drake is, or is he just
No.
that big?
It's not twisted. He's literally the most streamed artist. So I think
Yeah.
it's a common thing.
So I don't
Yeah.
think they're playing extra tracks because we're close to Toronto. Like, you don't
No.
really need more.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like it, but I find like out of all the rappers, like Drake's the one I'm most likely to hear if I turn on the radio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's singing too, right? So it helps.
That's true. Yeah.
It helps with.
It's easy to
people
cross
who don't
over.
like the raps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what we can get to more song specific questions. So this album, like most Drake albums, had a ton of singles. There's 7 listed here.
Oh, geez.
So the singles
Really?
were-
I did not know that. 7 singles. Okay. Hit
7
me, Gordon. What
singles.
are they?
So you got Marvin's Room, that was the first one. Headlines, Make Me Proud, The Motto, Take Care. I don't. Do you guys ever call it Hyper, or is it just like you just call it Hell Yeah, fucking right? And then Crew Love was the last one, which came out in 2012
Yeah.
as a single. But everybody, that song was pretty big because it has The Weeknd on it.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start this off by asking, what do you think was the biggest song from this album?
I have a weird. It's kind of a weird pick because it's not really even on the album, but the motto. That
That's
song
pretty
was
good.
that song was so huge. It had like the whole YOLO thing. Everyone was yelling YOLO, and it had Lil Wayne and him. They're gross riding the whip in the video and everything. It was like a moment. but it's not really on the album, so I feel weird picking it. So the only other song I would pick other than that would be Take Care, because it's him and Rihanna duetting. So it's, how can you get anything better than that? Especially this era. They're pretty much like the king and queen of hip hop, R&B, pop, or whatever mashups they're doing, and it's them duetting, and they were dating at the time, or maybe not dating. I don't know.
I think they were off and on.
Yeah. There are our generation. They're like the next generation of Britney and Justin.
It's like we just want them to be together, but they probably won't be.
Yeah. No, she's like dating princes now. But anyways,
Just move on.
but yeah, no, I'd say it's probably Take Care. Just that whole Rihanna Drake connection. It's like the title track, and it's a great song as well.
Yeah. I've heard Take Care on the radio a kabillion times. A kabillion.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. I didn't even know the motto was that big. I mean, I knew it was big, but I didn't think it was big. I know that vocal sample in Take Care, it's just, I heard that so many times on the radio. Is at a certain point, when it gets to that point, I just like turn the song off. Like, all right.
Well, don't they sample the same, or is it a different Gil Scott Heron song on the Kanye album? Is it the same song or a different Gil Scott Heron?
I think it's a different song.
Yeah.
I think I think on the Kanye one, I think it's like Kanye just uses the same track, like Made in America or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Or Survive in America.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree with you, Anis. I actually had the motto as well, because YOLO was just such a cultural impact. It like,
That's true.
I mean, he's basically credited with creating that phrase. Like, people attribute it to him.
And Lil Wayne, like, don't forget, like, the Lil Wayne angle, like, even getting, for like the first question, like getting into Drake, being a Lil Wayne fan was a part of it as well, because he was like his boy, right?
Yeah.
And them two being on that song, that's probably like the biggest song that has the two of them on it. And you can, if you drop that song in like a club tomorrow, or even in just in a regular bar, everyone's gonna start singing along right away. It's gonna get a pop. So yeah, it's hard to go against it, but it's not really on the album.
Those are
Right.
Well, I guess, but was it released at the same time, just as like a bonus online?
I don't know. It's not on the back.
Oh, okay, well, I guess it doesn't count.
But I think it was on like a deluxe edition. I'm not sure like how soon after it came out, but
Yeah.
it's a single off of. I don't know. That's the world we live in now with streaming. You can just release a song and it's just online.
Yeah.
This was like
That
the
song-
beginnings of that.
The motto, though, that's like probably my favorite Lil Wayne rhymes. Like, I'm not a huge Lil Wayne fan, so I don't know if I haven't dove that deep into his stuff, but it just seems less lazy in this tune.
Oh,
I think the beat kind of forces him to be like not so straightforward. It can't be straightforward because the beat's kind of a little bit twisted. Yeah. Anyway.
No, he's all over the place on his albums, so they're good. Like the Carter especially like the Carter, like Carter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think it's up to 5 now. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the first 3 were really good. 4 was okay too. I don't remember 5, but yeah, the Carter albums are good.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I guess we can spend this time talking about Take Care, just kind of get that out of the way, because it is a pretty big song. I don't know how it rates for the rest of the questions for you guys, but just going back to what you were saying, Anis, like if we had to pick an actual album song, I would Take Care is probably the biggest song from this album. I agree with that. And then basically, yeah, it samples Jamie XX's remix of the Gil Scott Heron song, which is also called "I'll Take Care of You." So if you listen to the Jamie XX version, which I did earlier this week, it's pretty much like the same, but it's just the original lyrics, and he's got the remix and kind of everything down, and the interlude. And then 40, the producer for Drake, he just kind of adds Rihanna, punches up the bass, the beat a little bit, but it's pretty close. So I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to add, or want to talk about Take Care a little bit?
I think that still might be the bigger song. I mean, you can check your streams though to double check, but it's like more of a pop song, right? So like if you want to get played on the radio, a wide variety of, it's just like a love song. That's like your biggest type of, hit, R&B hit that you can have. So I tend to think it's probably the biggest song. Maybe it's just because.
Yeah, and it has great singing on it. It's like a great duet. Like pretty much when they were both, like especially Rihanna at that time too was huge.
Oh yeah.
She's not. Yeah. I don't know if she hasn't released an album in forever now, but hopefully soon. But But yeah, no, it's a great track. I love that. The beat is great. Like this, I guess it's a sample, but it just works so well with their voices, and that sample kind of fits in as well at the end. But I know
Yeah.
it's a great track. It's like a slower track, but it still has a big beat, which goes along with that. The whole album's sort of like that, but it's great driving music.
Yeah.
But what did
The
you
one thing
guys
I-
think? Sorry, just what did you guys think when you first heard that sample come in though? Like the vocal sample thing loop. Honestly.
Like the interlude at the end? You mean
Yeah.
the interlude?
Well,
Whatever the fuck.
Well, I knew who Gil like I knew who Gil Scott Heron was at the time, especially he had an album come out around then as well. Yeah, the album that came out the year before or whatever. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, oh, because he was sort of like a big influence from '70s. So I think people just were excited they had something new out, and they were like everyone was sort of sampling it because Kanye did it, Drake did it. So it's kind of like I wasn't a shock to hear it. It was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I think he was even credited. It's like featuring Gil Scott Heron. It said like on
Yeah.
Much Music and stuff. So it wasn't
That's what
jarring
I
to hear it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gordon, what was your reaction?
Yeah, my reaction I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting the song to kind of go there, and to me that elevated the song even higher. Like, I mean, how can you when you got Rihanna and Drake kind of at the height of their powers in the moment, and then all of a sudden that interlude, and it's like, okay, cool. I like how they like played around with the track and threw it away to
Yeah.
Gil Scott Heron.
It is kind of neat when you realize it is like cut up and stuff. But definitely my first reaction was like, okay, where'd that come from? Like sonically, I mean, if you don't know what it is and whatever the backstory, it's pretty weird. So it's almost like a little gimmicky. It's like,
But also at the time too, I was just thinking this today when I was listening to it. At this era, even like a lot of the indie rock that was coming out was very moody, sort of similar like this, and they would have like kind of breaks in songs and bridges. Like Bon Iver comes to mind right away, but it just seemed to fit in. It didn't really seem that jarring for me. It just sort of like it was sort of like deterring from the rest of the track and kind of mixing it up. But it was a good change for me at least.
Yeah. Yeah, just one random question I just wanted to ask you guys. Is this like one of the best examples of like Drake kind of going back and forth between like his singing and then like all of a sudden he just starts rapping and then he like kind of kicks back out of it, but he does it really effortlessly?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
I love it. I think, yeah, it's like probably the best for that. Where Ryan was talking about how he's like switching the dial. It's almost like he does that like on and off in the song, like depending on what he's singing and what fits better with the song. It's
Right.
really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, he'll be busting rhymes and then he'll finish the verse with like a line that he sings or something. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. So it might be a good album for someone who isn't like too into the rapping yet, but likes Drake's singing. At least you could, get used to Drake a little bit more. But at this point, I think everybody's used to Drake. I mean, can't really avoid it.
Yeah. And Rihanna sounds great on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of her best tracks too. Like performance wise, at least.
Yeah.
So is there a track that you feel is the most overplayed? I guess I'll kick this off. I'll answer this one. Me listening to the radio a lot, I thought Crew Love was like, I've heard that song so many times. I cannot hear that song again. Like, I love the beat. I think it's an amazing beat, but like, I'm over that song. I
know what you mean, especially like I was saying it when I was talking to Gordon earlier this week. I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, the first like minute and a half is just the intro of just like the ooh,
Yeah,
which is really cool. Like it's a cool vibe, but hearing it on the radio, it probably shouldn't have been a radio single. Like I understand it had The Weeknd on it, and there was them two playing off each other. But all I can think of when I hear that song is I remember when it first came out as a single. I was with a bunch of friends in Niagara Falls for a bachelor party. So it was like a bunch of us. And my one buddy just kept singing, like we'd be in the elevator and be like, I'm loving the crew. Loving the crew.
yeah.
You just want to like punch yourself in the face.
Yeah. It's funny.
But like I love the reference. Like there's like a dance song that came out a few years later where they like reference it specifically, and it's like, yeah, okay, I get the reference. Like that's cool. And like I mean, I thought maybe going into it because it's been a few years, it's not like in constant radio play anymore. And I thought like coming back to it this past week, listening to it again, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll be over it. And it's like, no, I'm still, it's still, they played it too much. It got me.
Really?
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of cool.
It's
like
a good beat though. It's a really good beat. I love the beat still.
Because it's cool when it comes in on the
It's a
album
weird
because the album like starts like kind of, more chill, and then you got headlines, and then it kind of goes to that song where you have like the big intro, and it kind of gets like bigger at the end, which is kind of cool flow to the album
Mhm.
going into Take Care right after. So that's what I'm saying. It was kind of, for me, it fits better as like an album track than it does as a single.
For a single, it kind of wanders. Like it's not. I mean, you
It's
feel.
not it's not your standard song. It's not your verse,
No.
chorus, verse, chorus.
Well, I mean, yeah. What is the drum beat like? Like bunch of like four reverse shots with like reverse drum samples, and then
Yeah, it's reverse.
it's like super quiet. Yeah.
So I guess we just kind of a random tangent here. How do you guys feel about the sequencing of this album? Like, do you guys like is there like a part of this album that you really enjoy? Like for me, I can answer it, but like I have an answer to this question too. But like, how do you guys feel about like, are there sections of this album that you prefer, or is it just like
I find it's like the length really gets to you, because for me, like starting the album from the top, like Over My Dead Body starts the album off really good, and you go, like the shot for me, headlines, Crew Love, Take Care, Marvin's Room, Buried Alive, Interlude, like it all flows really well. Underground Kings. And then I find when you get to Will Be Fine, Make Me Proud, you feel like the album is about to wrap up, but then it's like, Lord knows, Camera, like it just keeps going. So you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, this isn't ending.
Yeah.
and by like, there's a couple of tracks on here that probably would have hit better if they came sooner in the album, because I find normally when I put it on, I don't even get to the end of the back half. Like me driving home from Toronto at 2 a.m, let's say, I'm probably not going to even make it to the end. Like I'm going to be home before it's over.
Yeah, you're missing the last 4 tracks.
Yeah.
Just do what I do: skip ahead to headlines and then shave.
No, but I love that. I love how the album opens with
It's good.
Chantal Kreviazuk playing piano and singing. Very Canadian.
On the keys.
Very Canadian.
Yeah, no, I mean, my answer to that is like, I thought it flowed really well, especially going back to it this week and hearing it for the first time in a while. I thought it flowed really well up until I kind of like where We'll Be Fine and Make Me Proud. And when you're listening to it, you don't notice it switches tracks. Like if you were told me that's like one track, but like it's kind of split into 2 different parts, I would have been like, sure, that's what it sounds like. So I'm on board with that up until about like track 12.
Yeah.
And then if I were to like cut, like for me, my preference on like cutting anything, I'd probably go up to the Andre, like the Real Her. And then those last 4 tracks, I'm like, I love like the Back That Ass Up, the Practice, but like those ones, yeah, you're right. I don't know if they almost me or what.
It almost feels like it ends with Cameras and then Good Ones Go interlude on. It should have been like a second disc with like 8 tracks, because like even like the Real Her is a good track, but it's kind of weird because it's Drake for 3 minutes, and then the beat switches up. Lil Wayne comes in, then the beat switches again, and Andre 3000 comes in. But you're like 4.5 minutes into the song by the time Andre 3000 even comes in. So you're like, this is like a song. It's almost like Drake finished a track, and then Lil Wayne and 3 Stacks were there, and he's like, "Oh, jump in the studio too and like record." Like, why is it so long?
Yeah. And the other thing about that track specifically, like T-Pain was there, so he does the backing vocals over Drake's part.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, I've never been like a big fan of Hell Yeah, Fucking Right. I'm not the biggest fan of that song.
I like the chorus hook. Actually, the hook is
I think it works well. I again, that's another one that kind of works well in the context of the album. But as a single, I was like, I didn't really like it as a single. But yeah, as in the album, it works well, especially like it comes super late and the beat is a little bit like a change up from what you're getting before.
Yeah. How about you, Ryan? Any thoughts, I guess, on the general sequence of the album, or how do you tackle it?
Well, like kind of like I mentioned earlier, I usually skip to headlines. So the first 2 tracks, they're good. They're good. I just don't know them as well because
really? Those are like 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, but I would have to get to the end and then like restart. So I like even from track 2, I'm maybe not going to get to the end of the album. But I mean, at a certain point, I'll be skipping around. There are definitely some favorites.
But the other thing too, like when you're getting to some of the later tracks too, it just the subject matter. It's like, okay, this song's about an ex. This song's about his fame. The song's about an ex. The song's about his fame. And then when you get to it, you're like, okay, like this song is about an ex, but it's not as good as like Marvin's Room,
or like we covered this topic,
or like this song is about like like how you're all famous now, but it's not as good as like Headlines. But when
Yeah.
it's coming an hour into the album, you can bring up these concerns.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're gonna hit me with the same subject matter, at least when when you get to Lord Knows, you're like, oh shit, Just Blaze. It's like one of the most like popping tracks on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's like you have a different producer coming in, so you're getting a different injection of energy. Especially it's like Just Blaze, so you're gonna get the party vibes from him right away. So like that song sticks out for me, and it's like one of my favorites for exactly that reason, because by the time you get to it, like in the back half of the album, you're already like freaking 12 songs in or whatever. When it kicks in, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
on
sorry,
this
go ahead.
album, anything that really kicks in stands out, right? Because the whole, for how long it is, and I don't know how many different producers were intimately involved, but like the feel is remarkably consistent.
Well,
You
it's
feel-
mainly like his like collaborating partner 40
yeah.
pretty much like works on all of his albums.
Throughout most of the album, it's like there's the upper register is left for the occasional 808s and the vocal, and then like the rest of the track is in the low end and like the mid lows. Like it's very sort
Yeah.
of
What
almost
do they
like you're
call it?
underwater.
What are they called? There, I saw like some playlists. It's like ethereal hip hop or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But
I guess
the advantage is that you get this is really noticeable on the opening track. I think it's the opening track where as soon as Drake comes in, it like pops, the vocal pops right cuts right through, and you get that throughout the whole album. So whenever the vocals are there, there's nothing in the way. There's no like high register guitar or anything like that. Occasionally, I think there's only a couple tracks where there's like The Ride has got like singing and stuff that might cloud that middle range, but for the most part, consistently throughout the album, it's like there's vocals on top and everything else is kind of underwater except for when the drums come in.
Yeah.
I found the only song that I found didn't really have that mood was Look What You've Done. Kind of had like a different vibe from like, it wasn't as brooding as the rest of the album, but yeah. Pretty much the majority of it is brooding. Even when you have like the bigger, like more hip hop songs, like the more club tracks or whatever, they still have that same sort of bassy sound to it. Where you have that, I don't know how to explain it, but it's that same sort of sounds that you're still getting in those pops.
So you may say you want like, oh, it's long and this should be like a second disc or something else, but it all is consistent enough. Like,
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's not consistent. It just kind of gets long in the tooth. I feel like if this was like 12 of the best songs on here in like one album, like one 12 song album, as opposed to 20 or whatever, 19 tracks, where I don't know. I guess it's like more of an old school like mentality of the album, where nowadays it's just like, give me as many tracks so I can pick the ones I like and throw them on a playlist. Like this seems like it's kind of heading in that direction, and then he pretty much jumped into that with More Life, where he called the album a playlist, where he's like, oh, you don't have to play this in order, like just hit shuffle. But yeah, so like it's kind of like this album seemed like that's the direction it was heading, and like this, I don't know if this, like, this is 2011, so it's like the beginning of streaming era, so I don't know how it worked back then or what they were getting into, but I know now you get a lot of artists who just release a lot of songs because they want to get a lot of streams, especially that first week when everyone listens to it for the first time and plays all 20 tracks. But I don't know, an album should be a tight like 10 to 12 tracks in my mind. I don't know, maybe it's just
or it's a double. Yeah,
it's just an old man in me.
It should fit on an LP. If it doesn't fit on an LP,
I just think of like that hour mark, so you can kind of listen to it like in an hour drive, or if you go somewhere and come back, you can listen to the whole album, like driving to work and home from work.
So should Take Care have been a double album?
Maybe, but I don't know. Like nowadays, you can just drop, because he still does these long albums. So I'm just saying, like even now, you can just drop singles. He does that even, but I don't know. I guess I'm complaining about a lot of music, which I shouldn't be complaining about.
I don't know. It seems like Drake, like the whole idea of an album is like especially over the last few years, have it's like a loose term to him, or a loose idea. Like he's always releasing tracks. Like the one track, like listening through through his studio albums, at least this week, I was waiting for like 0 to 100, and it's just like a bonus or promotional track. And like he seems to always just have more content. Like it's not like, I don't know if we'll ever get like just like a 48-minute disc from him.
Yeah,
or
like
record.
it doesn't like it's like the whole album sounds like cohesive, but it's like not tight. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like you're seeing a rough cut of a movie where it's like, okay, you still need to cut like 20 minutes out of this.
Yes.
Whereas
Yeah,
this album is legit like 20 minutes too long in my eyes to be a single album. Like back in the day, it probably wouldn't even fit on like one vinyl. You would have
I do
tried to fit on
feel
one
like,
CD.
yeah, no kidding. It depends on how big your CD is, but
Yeah.
I do feel at times like it where it's a little bit wandering. Like, okay, I'm not really sure where we are here. Skip track. Like, yeah, sometimes I don't even know if you could cut particular songs or if it's like parts of songs. I don't know.
Yeah, because like
I
I
don't
was
know what
saying,
to cut.
like for me, like you get to Make Me Proud. I feel like we're sort of like rounding out to the end, and you get like Lord Knows, like, oh, another poppin' track, and then it feels like it's wrapping up, but you're like pretty much like halfway through the album. Like you still have a fucking shit ton of more music, which like it's
Yeah.
still good songs, but as a listener, I was like you're preparing almost like mentally just for like, oh, okay, we're wrapping up here, and it's like, oh shit, there's another 40 minutes to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like if you're watching a movie, you're used to seeing 2 hour movies. If you're watching a movie and you hit hour 3, you're like, all right, ugh, I
Yeah.
hope this is a good story. Like, it starts to feel a little bit long just because we're used to it. We're used to a certain length, and you can thank the LP
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm complaining about too many songs. It's not like I hate the songs. It just kind of it makes me like I'm less inclined, especially now going back and listening to songs. Like I was even saying before, when I throw on the album, I don't even make it to the end half the time. And if I'm gonna
Yeah,
jump to tracks, it's very rarely the ones at the end because I haven't listened to them as much, so I don't have as much of a connection as
yeah,
like I was saying, like the first two are some of my favorites, and it's probably because I've heard them more than the last five or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Anise. And like, especially with the motto as a bonus, try like if you have the CD, it doesn't impact you. But if you have like, you see the motto coming up and it's like 3 tracks ahead, you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll skip to
Jump
that.
to it. Yeah.
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 So I guess, yeah, sorry. Thanks for indulging me on that weird tangent there of the sequencing of songs. I did want to talk about that. So
Well,
yeah,
there's a
sorry, did you
lot.
guys,
But that's
yeah,
the thing, like it's sequenced so well until I find where you start getting to cameras where it's like, okay, this is still like there's still like a whole other album worth of tracks.
and I think the other thing is too, like if you look at the last, like I'm just looking at the track lengths. If you look at the last like 5 or 6 tracks, those seem to be kind of like the longest on the album. Like you start out with like a bunch of singles, like 4-ish minutes, and then when you get to Lord Knows, that's a 5 minute, over 5 minute song, and then 7, and then like mix of 5 minute songs. I guess there's some 3 minute songs in there too, but they just seem to be a little bit longer, and they're not really featuring anyone. So if it's like you're there for the hip hop, you might start to lose interest a little bit.
Because I know
Actually,
whenever Drake releases an album, there's always like that initial like backlash online where half the fans say it sucks, half the fans say it's good. Some people say, oh, it's like, well, he's never been good. Well, I guess he's like the biggest artist, so you get the most opinions, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess going back to the original question, I said for most overplayed, I said Crew Love. Did you guys have any thoughts on that, or did you guys think maybe another song that was overplayed?
I
For
agree.
me,
I
it
would
was
say all the singles sort of, but yeah, Crew Love
yeah.
seems specific just because it was, I don't know, just the way the song is structured.
Yeah,
For me, it was Take Care. I mean, Crew Love, yeah, would get it, but Take Care was just, I don't know, that sample would come on so much, and I ended up hating it. I mean,
Well,
it was on the fence with it at the beginning, but I ended up hating
you
it.
can always change the track at the end.
When
It's
I'm
not like
at
it's in the
work.
middle. It's not like it's at the top.
That's true.
so I guess this is a good chance for us to ask, what's your favorite song? Who wants to go first?
As if I haven't already said, it's Headlines. Headlines is my favorite
Oh
song.
yeah, okay, yeah, you said headline. Do you want to talk about headlines for a minute, or did you already give all your
Yeah,
headlines?
sure. I mean, it's great. It's consistent. It's like 3 verses long, consistent rapping through the whole time, and the chorus is such a simple hook, they know, and then you got like these huge breaks. Actually, funny story about this song. So it's on my song list for like when I get wedding gigs. So I'll give a couple of the song list and they'll pick songs, right? But I was playing at a Celtic night at this bar. It's like it was called Churchill Arms, and they would have just like traditional Celtic Irish music on Wednesday night. So I was there doing the Celtic stuff, and this wedding couple comes in, and they're like, "Oh, can you guys do this song?" I'm like, "What?" And they want me to do headlines. I'm like, "Oh man!" So I'm doing headlines, and I swear the owner of the shop was like looking from the kitchen, just being like, cause they didn't expect that. Like they only heard me do Celtic stuff, so there was a really awkward moment there where I'm like, how do I censor this? No N words. Every N word's a rapper. It's difficult. But they hired us, so got the gig.
That's
Nice.
good.
Yeah. Favorite song?
Yeah, I mean, I had that too. For favorite, I wasn't sure what song to pick. I was like, what is my favorite? What's the song that I like the best? I don't really have like there was no go-to for me, which was kind of strange on this. So I put headlines with a question mark. I enjoy where like it is like it's track 3. It seems kind of like different compared to the other rap songs on this album, but like I think that also helps it stand out more. Like when you got the 2 slower tracks, especially with like Shot for Me right before that, where it's a pretty mellow, almost like a poppy R&B song, and then all of a sudden Headlines kicks off, and just like the sound of the beat, the visual, I just get like the visual of like papers on the press, just like almost cheesy, like 40s, like you see the paper spin, it's like Drake's doing this or Drake's doing that. We'll see the music video just to make sure it was nothing like that.
Whenever I hear this song, I always think of the music video because I remember when it dropped, it was like Drake. All of a sudden, he's like a big deal. He's like kind of rapping about himself, like rapping about how famous he is. It's all in the Sky Dome, and it's like, whoa, he's made it.
Yeah.
It was like my first like memory of this album. I thought it was like the first single. I didn't even realize there was.
So
a
did
single.
I.
Yeah. Well, my favorite track is I'm like the total opposite of you guys. It's my favorite track is Marvin's Room. I
Nice.
love that song. It's like so unique. I love the whole like how he's drunk calling a girl, and
Yeah.
you hear her like, "Are you drunk right now?"
That's a great use of a telephone sample. Yeah. It's really good.
And I just like how like I know it's what Drake is like known for, but it's like this song just hit different. He's like extra vulnerable. Just the way the beat is like it's so just sort of brooding and ethereal or whatever they call it. Like it's just like such a unique sound, and then it ends with that like the Chili Gonzalez piano solo, which like a nice bow on it. I don't know. That song is just sort of, and for Drake being like a sort of like this R&B pop star guy, this seems like the song that stands out the most for me from him. That's in his R&B bag.
Yeah. I had that as my. Sorry, what was that, Ryan?
I was just saying it's one of my faves too. Like,
yeah, I had that as underrated. I had it as underrated because I don't think I hear it on the radio like ever, and
it's actually like I know you're saying it's underrated, but it's actually like universally like online. Everyone.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe I'm getting underrated all wrong, but yeah, it is a really good track. It totally, when I first hear the beat, like just like the voicemail, you hear the beat kind of like ramp up or do all like up and down, and it just reminds me of like early weekend stuff like Thursday, House of Balloons, and then also that first Frank Ocean album, which I think probably came out after this album, but like just that early late 2000s, like 2009, 2011, like in between there. So yeah, that's what that song reminds me of. So whenever I hear it, I'm like, yeah, I'll take my time with this one. I like where it goes.
Hey, do you guys? Okay, so with that song, did you guys experience that whole? I know we've talked about this before, like the beat flip that can happen at the beginning of songs. This happened for this song for me because the loud sound in the drums, the rhythm kind of fits within a samba where that loud sound would be on 2. So I'm listening to it, I'm hearing this boom sample on 2 every time. But I think that's probably just because I play samba sometimes. Nobody else experiences this.
I don't know. No. I don't even know what you're referring to.
I have no idea.
As soon as the chorus comes in, my 2 becomes 1, and then it like flips. I don't know. We've talked about another songs. One of these albums that does.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I think I can.
I don't know if you guys probably didn't hear it. I mean, most people when they hear the loud note, they think one because that's the strong beat.
I think I know what you're referring to. Like that first beat does feel like it comes in like late.
Yeah. Okay. Then maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I know what you're referring to.
Well, if our listeners out there could let us know in the comments if you experienced the beat flip.
It's good to know. Was there any cave tambourine? We haven't talked about that in a while.
No, I've been waiting to dive into like a research rabbit hole about tambourines and pop music, but every time the closest tambourine I think was on the last album and it was like a short reverb, so it didn't really count.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll keep asking. Oh, I haven't asked in a while, so I'll blow the dust off that soon. And then a random piece of trivia for Marvin's Room. Apparently, that song was recorded at Marvin Gaye's studio that he founded in Los Angeles, and it's called Marvin's Room. So that's where the song name comes from. We can move on to underrated. I said my underrated, even though it's not really an underrated. What do you guys have for an underrated track on this album?
Honestly, it's probably a song I don't listen to. It's probably underrated from me. I'm probably someone that's underrating it. Yeah. I don't know if I guess one of the first two, because Ryan says he skips them. I really like Shot for Me, or I'll say the first track just because that has Chantal Kreviazuk.
Nice. Yeah, I think the first two tracks work really well together.
Yeah,
they flow really well.
I always like Underground Kings. Nobody really talks about it, but I feel like it's the other aggressive-ish beats, but along with headlines. It just has a rap hook, no singing.
It's like a tribute to UGK, the rapper.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess with that we can move on to a song that you.
I'll have one for underrated actually. Buried Alive, just because it's not even Drake.
Okay. Yeah.
I think me and Gordon were talking about this earlier this week. How this was the first song I think I ever heard Kendrick Lamar on.
Yeah, we're trying to look it up to see what was big before that, because this was before.
Because I didn't really get into Section 8. I didn't hear that until afterwards. Because the first song I really heard was Swimming Pools, but I guess it was this.
Right.
But it was I didn't make the connection until after the fact that that's the guy that was on the Drake album.
Who keeps rhyming with Canadian? Yeah, the rhyme. The rhymes, Kendrick Lamar's rhymes there, they're okay. I can see why you may have forgot about them and that's that guy.
Yeah, I always respect the rappers who have just a guest spot on their album, and it's they're not on that track at all. They just reserve it for a good rapper. Kanye West does this sometimes, he did it with Common on the first album.
And then Drake did it with Skepta on More Life.
Right. Yeah, I think Kanye's done it a few times. There's one other track. I can't think of it now, but I'll look into that. But
I think there's one that's just Kid Cudi, isn't there?
Maybe that could be it. So we've already kind of hinted on this. So I don't know if you guys want to add anything else. But is there a song that you skip to formalize it?
Honestly, it's that back half. If I had to narrow it down to songs, it'd probably be Practice, The Ride, Look What You've Done. Those are probably the ones I revisit the least because Hell Yeah, Fucking Right is a single, so sometimes people ask for it, so you end up hearing it indirectly. And Real Her has Lil Wayne and Andre 3000, so it's cool to hear them. So I might throw those on, but yeah, that back half, I just don't listen to it as much as the first 10, 11 tracks.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. I'm on board for the first 2/3 of the first half of that album, and then whenever I put the Stumble on, I've never just cut it out. I've usually go the distance, but yeah, I mean, listening to it, I listened to it probably 3 different times over the last week, and yeah, those last 3 or 4 tracks, I'm just
It's weird because it's not really even that I skip. It's not even that I skip it. It's just that usually when I'm throwing it on and I'm in the mood to listen to Drake, it's usually for 45 minutes, an hour. It's not it's that extra time that you have to leave it on. Even the other night, I had it on while I was outside, and then I went up to bed and there were still 4 tracks left. I'm I'll just let them play out, and I'm no, I need to fucking sleep. I just turned.
One song I do want to mention though is it kind of plays into like that early image that I had of him of like, the whole crying in the shower thing and the easy shots that we take on him. But like doing it wrong, it seems like he's like almost like he just broke up with the girl. Now he's like almost coaching her through getting through the breakup, giving her instructions on how to like deal with him. It's like, no, we should do this. It's like, okay, might be a bit much, but I get it. And it's warmed up to me. Like it's kind of cheesy, but I get it.
It has Stevie Wonder playing the harmonica.
Yeah.
I'm all for that harmonica.
So something about this, I haven't really thought too deeply about the lyrics, but there's one line where he's like, I think he says something along the lines of a generation of not being in love. I'm not sure what he's trying to get at with the song. Is there a deeper meaning behind just like a breakup song or a things go wrong kind of song?
Probably not.
I don't know.
All of his songs are about being in love or not being in love, and
that's it. I wanted deepness, depth.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing, like this whole week, I like just looking at the album cover and just kind of like seeing some of the reviews and stuff like that. I feel like calling him, I guess we can use this to get into the artwork, but I just want to call him Mr. Morose. Like he's just like always kind of quiet and brooding. He looks like hurt. It's like, but like, I mean, not to talk about Chris D'Elia, I guess he's canceled, but like he hits that like with that stand-up bit, he hits it like so perfectly where he's talking about like he can't find his watch. It's like lost in his mansion. It's like all this like you feel bad for him, but you're like, I don't know why I feel bad
like,
for Drake.
I had sex 4 times this week.
Yeah, he actually he says that like in his song.
I don't know how to be famous, man. Yeah.
I know it's funny, like opening up the CD, it's like an old school CD where it like folds out. And like I thought it was the lyrics at first, but it's just like the writing credits and copyrights and all that junk. But yeah, you got the old school pictures, the classic shot of Drake depressed at the table.
I know he looks so sad, but he's like dressed like a king. It's
so
like,
I think and like this is where you get the. I think it's like the first album where you get the Drake colors, because like this whole OVO line is like the black and gold.
Oh right, yeah.
Even like the Raptors have the black and gold jerseys and all that. But yeah, I think it started here.
Nice.
Like it.
October's very own.
October's very own, yeah. So I mean, I guess we can kind of use this to ask more or talk about kind of broader topics about Drake. A random piece of trivia I saw, just to kind of hint on the October's very own, is like he does his summer music festival. I think that started in 2011. I could be wrong. But I did see somewhere like for his tourism for 2018, he was responsible for 5% of all of Toronto's tourism income, like incoming income. And so they make $8.8 billion. He was responsible for $440 million that year, which.
Okay. How do you calculate that? How do you why are you here? I'm here for Drake. That's what I'm here for.
Well, he does those festivals. Like, I mean, that OVO festival is like insane. Like I remember.
And it's like 3 nights, isn't it?
Talking about, sorry, go ahead.
It's like 3 nights too. It's not just one show.
Yeah, so everybody was talking about the ticket pricing. I remember he was trending. It's like, this is outrageous, like $400 for tickets and stuff like that. But then after the concert happens, it's like, this is the most amazing concert I've ever been to. Like everybody that came here, it's worth the price of it.
I've never been to one because of the price, but I don't know. Now it's like the last couple of times I'm like, should I go? Because you always hear like, oh shit, like Kanye West was there. Like, oh, Rihanna was there. Oh, like this person. Like there's always like craziness. Oh, The Weeknd showed up and sang 4 songs. It's like,
yeah,
cool.
And it's like yeah. Sometimes you'll get an appearance from Eminem. He was just coming in from Detroit or whatever. And then did they have like the after parties are always crazy? Like, haven't there been multiple shootings over the years?
Yeah, there was a shot. Someone got shot at Musique nightclub. I believe.
Musique. Yeah.
It's hot up in the 6th.
The 6th. Yeah, I guess that's another thing too. Well, we can hold on to that, I guess, for a little bit later. But so we'll for the broader questions, we'll get into that like place in history and their peak and all that. So for where do you rank this album in Drake's discography? I'll throw out like a warning. Take mine with a grain of salt. I'm not the most like for me. I only included studio albums, so I'm not sure how you're gonna break it down, Anis or Ryan. If you guys are gonna include like the playlists or the compilations or anything like that. But who wants to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, so yeah, so as I said, take mine with a grain of salt. But yeah, I had Take Care as number 1. Nothing Was the Same as number 2. Thank Me Later. I thought it was a pretty great debut. I know the whole point of like Take Care, the reason he called it Take Care is because he didn't get the time to work on Thank Me Later the way he wanted to. So with Take Care, he's spending more time on it. He's taking care. So just random piece of trivia there. But I do like Thank Me Later. It's a great debut, even though I don't know if you can call that his debut. And then I had Scorpion and then Views. So I'm not sure how you guys will rank yours. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, mine would probably be
Take Care is
similar.
number one. That's all I got.
Yeah, mine would be similar to yours, Gordon. Like I didn't go through and like listen to them all this week. I'm just kind of going off of what I listened to, probably like what I feel like I listened to the most when they came
Right.
out. I went. It's funny. I'm complaining about this album links, and the top two I had was Take Care and Scorpion, and then Nothing Was the Same, Thank Me Later, Views. I think that's it, right? For actual.
Yeah, there's only 5. There's another one coming out this year, but
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to come out in November, then January, then the summer, and I don't know how long. He's probably getting, like I saw someone tweet, he's probably getting sick of that haircut by now.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like Scorpion. I rank Scorpion a little bit higher than Views just because Scorpion's actually broken into 2 discs, even though on Spotify it's not. But like I was able, when I knew it was like kind of how it's divided, it made it easier to digest, even though it is 90 minutes long. Just even those little mental breaks I find are helpful. I mean, yeah, the old man in me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, Scorpion, because it kind of came out like right like the height of like when I first downloaded Spotify and was like, oh shit, I could listen to everything all the time. And I remember that album came out like a year after that, and I just sort of listened to it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had so many songs to choose from. Mob Ties, great song.
Yeah, I like. Is Nonstop on that one? I like Nonstop a lot.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
Nonstop's
on
good.
I
like how when it cuts in Euphoria. That was a good episode.
Yeah. So, so I mean, okay, we'll wait till Place in History. So where is this Drake's peak, or what would you call Drake's peak? I don't even know how to answer that. I just put critically, it's his peak for sure. I mean, it won him the rap album of the year for the Grammys. If that has any weight to you, I think it's probably the highest rated. I could be wrong in terms of like general reviews, Metacritic, or whatever you want to measure that by. But that's about it. Like, I don't know. You can't really, like, how do you measure Drake's peak?
I don't know, because it's weird, because it seems like even when you try to look at the streaming numbers for like what does the best and like what albums are people listening to, it's just whatever's new. Like it's just constantly changing. Like because he had that Scary Hours too. He released a couple songs a couple months ago, so those songs are all at the top of streaming. Or songs from like Scorpion, or the songs that are supposedly on this album called Certified Lover Boy that's supposed to come out at some point. He has a whole haircut and everything. And he released a whole clothing line, Certified Lover Boy, but no music. But yeah, like it's hard to judge when his peak is. He's sort of been peaking for the last 10 years.
So is he still?
It's like he started on a peak.
Still growing, I guess.
I guess the only way his peak could change is like what kind of business ventures he takes on. Like I know, okay, so you mentioned Euphoria, and he's a producer of that. He's got his own production company. He's got like hit shows now that are coming out. I mean, he was in Degrassi, of course, before all of this jumped off. So
and then he has like I know he's just like a title, like the ambassador for the Raptors, but he built that practice facility, that OVO practice facility. And now he's building a concert hall in Toronto as well. So like he's got the money. He's going to be throwing it around in other ventures for sure, trying to build that trust fund for Adonis.
So I mean, did you have anything to add, Ryan, in terms of what do you think is Drake's peak? If he has a peak, how can you measure Drake's peak?
You can't measure a peak if it keeps going on up, right? Like if you said it's the newest stuff that's getting the highest streams. I mean,
well, no, it's hard because usually on Spotify, like when you look at the most popular, if something's getting a lot of streams more recently, they'll put those over songs that have more streams. So like everything that's at the top is all the new stuff. So like One Dance has 2 billion streams, but
which is insane.
Yeah, and like God's Plan has 1.7 billion. But like songs that came out earlier this year have like Laugh Now, Cry Later has like 500 million streams, or like the Scary Hours stuff already has they already have like almost 200 million streams. Like it's crazy to even quantify. Passion Fruit has like almost 1 billion streams.
That's like
when I think of Drake, I still think of him as like on top of the pop R&B hip hop world. I still think of him as like like the biggest or one of the biggest. So
Yeah, I know.
I
I know.
can't. I couldn't say that he peaked by now. I don't think this is over yet.
I know. Even for me, like if I see, an artist releases a new album, I'm like, oh, like I don't know. No one's coming to mind. Like, oh, Travis Scott released a new album. Oh, there's a song with Drake. I'll listen to it first. Maybe not Travis Scott's a bad example, but like most other artists, like I'll be like, oh, listen to this song, like the Drake song first. Or he works a lot with artists that I don't even like know. Like I remember that one song he had a couple of years ago, "Look Alive." I forget even who sang it, but I remember I would just listen to his verse and then just switch the track because the other guy was kind of shit. But you know what I mean? Like he's always has something out and it's always good. So like recently he has a song with Nicki Minaj and Lil Wayne, "Seeing Green." So that one's like getting a shit ton of streams now. So hard to quantify. He's like been peaking.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Once he falls off a little bit, that's when we'll know. That's the peak. That's when we'll know. But he's just been so like just flawless, like in terms of like his reach, his plays, like the records he set. I mean, I always have this like weird, maybe it's being Canadian, but I have like a weird, like when I first started hearing about Drake, I always had this weird insecurity. It's like somebody's going to knock him down a peg. Somebody's going to mess with like Jay-Z or Kanye. Somebody's going to knock him down. Or something's going to turn over time and he'll get like that Nickelback, almost Justin Bieber kind of like hate that just comes from everywhere.
All Canadian artists.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's all Canadian artists, but like the big ones seem to like all of a sudden there's a crack in the foundation. But I don't know. I feel like Justin Bieber's kind of worked his way back to respectability as he gets older, I guess. But it feels like, yeah, I always had that insecurity. And then all of a sudden when I see him feuding with like Kanye and handling himself well and he's coming back stronger than ever, it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's something else. And maybe it was just like the Forever video, watching him in that. It's like, this guy's on a different level.
Yeah. No, because people have tried beefing with him. Like they had the whole Pusha T thing, but
right.
He didn't even respond half the time. Or Meek Mill, he pretty much like buried. He had to like do a song with him and bring him out on stage to give him his career back.
Yeah, Drake doesn't really seem like a fighter. He seems like a good Canadian boy. Maybe that's just from the Degrassi kind of thing, but
well, have you heard Back to Back? What are you talking about? He's hardcore.
Right.
And then so I guess what's the next question we asked? What's the place in history? So I just wanted to do since this is more local to us, there's two things I wanted to point out in terms of like the locality of Drake in a weird way. Maybe it's just me, maybe they're just coincidences. It seems like everybody's like girlfriend or ex-girlfriend has met Drake or knew him like back in the day before he blew up. Like Katie has a story where she's like, Wilford, my wife, at Wilford, when she was at Wilfrid Laurier University, one of her friends knew Drake. So he came out and performed a song at like whatever their like student life center is there. And then he went to Phil's with them after and she didn't really hang out with him and talk with him because he was just like the guy from Degrassi that's trying to be a rapper. And then, yeah, she like took a picture with like her three friends and it's like, see that guy really like dark and blurry in the shadows back there? That's a Drake. And like, all you can see is like this diamond earring and like it sticks out in the dark. But like, it seems like I've talked to other people too, where it's like somebody's met Drake at some point way before he was famous. Like I want to say like in my example, it's like 2007, 2008. So it was really before he like jumped off.
I don't know. I always kind of sort of roll my eyes when people tell me their Drake stories because at this point it's like, okay, from all these stories I've heard, 70% of them are probably bullshit. Because no lie, like everyone, I like, especially girls, not to sound like,
yeah, it's always women. It's always women.
Women, which I don't know, maybe it makes sense, but like even my ex-wife had a story. Like my brother's his ex-girlfriend was friends with a girl that was on Degrassi and they went to her wedding and stuff, but Drake wasn't there, but she knew Drake, I guess. But yeah, it seemed like everyone you meet has one. It's sort of like, okay, sure. Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah. Like, oh yeah. Someone they partied together. Cool. Yeah. they even did like an episode of Atlanta where they go to the Drake party. There's like cardboard cutouts of Drake.
Oh right, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
And they're taking pictures with and then he even used like a line from that. He used a line from that episode on Scorpion. It like cuts to it. It's like I don't get a picture with Drake tonight, that's that line. But
I totally forgot about that episode. So yeah, maybe that's why everybody's
yeah,
got.
so I don't know. Like, I'm sure Katie's story is not a fabrication.
Yeah, no, I believe her, but she didn't really seem interested.
But it just seems like everyone has a story. But there's like, it's funny because there's less Bieber stories, but Bieber grew up like 20 minutes from us. Whereas
Yeah.
Drake is like an hour and he was like on a TV show, but everyone seems to have, I don't know.
Yeah,
Nobody's
and you're right.
bragging about partying with
It's
Bieber.
always women. Like I don't have a Drake story. I don't know any
Yeah,
fellas that
maybe,
have a Drake story.
yeah, maybe it's just Drake and he just attracts women, so that's why.
I
There
don't
it
know. I
And
did
then-
see his photo at a Dutch ice cream shop in Toronto. That's my Drake story. His photo's
Nice.
up there.
Oh, picture? Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's got
He's
signed with
their,
an ice cream.
their biggest customer. And then I guess the other thing that I think is interesting, just being like local to Drake or to Toronto, I guess, is his references. Like there's one song I was just listening to today from More Life, Can't Have Everything. And he's referencing like how life used to be, like his vacation before he was famous was like just going to Niagara Falls for the weekend. And it's like, yo, that's where I am right now. Like, so, and now, and then he talks about how he's flying. He doesn't drive anymore and he owns his own jet. So it's funny to see, but the little references, I get like the little references to like Buffalo, the casino, like
Because even like just, you know, with Drake like repping Toronto and then the Raptors, and it helped also that the Raptors won like the championship and stuff a few years ago. But I find like ever since Drake, you're more inclined to see like a Blue Jays hat in a music video of like some, you know, some American artist or like a, you know, like a Raptors jersey on someone, or
right.
kind of like legit put like Toronto on the map as far as like hip hop culture goes and rap music.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like who?
No offense to Cardinal Official and Choclair and Maestro Fresh.
Chaos.
Yeah, no, keep at it. I want those guys to keep at it. I haven't heard anything from Choclair in a while, but yeah, it would be good. So yeah, I mean, where do you think Drake's place is in history? If you want to answer that more broadly in terms of music,
Maybe he's the
I-
bridge.
He's like the leader of this new school of, especially, well, it's kind of, there was a time where it seemed like every artist coming out was that sort of mix of R&B, hip hop, making this sort of slow to ethereal music or whatever. So he's kind of like the leader of that. But then that sort of went into like the auto-tune route, where you kind of got a lot of auto-tune, where like a post Malone, where he's kind of more in the auto-tune pop world, as much where Drake kind of floats more in the R&B hip hop. I don't know if it'd be like a direct comparison, but I don't know. He's sort of the father of modern R&B, I guess. He's like the most streamed artist. I don't know. His legacy's like still growing. Like we were saying, like he's still building empires. Like I don't know. I feel like he's gonna be like the next sort of like Jay-Z, where he's gonna be around forever.
yeah. Do you think it's one of those things where he hasn't been around long enough? Like it's got his 10 or 12 years or whatever he's been around. It's like so concentrated in success. Do you think it'll start to waver a bit, or do you think he'll like?
Because if you think of like the actual artists that we've even talked about on the show, he's probably like the one that's been the biggest, the longest.
Right.
Like he's been pretty much 12 years now, where he's kind of been releasing music, and 10 of those he's pretty much been like the number one artist.
Yeah, that's true.
Like he hasn't really pretty much after Kanye, he sort of kind of took the mantle. Like there's other artists in there, like, you know, if Beyonce releases an album, or Taylor Swift or Kendrick Lamar, or there's certain other artists that are big, but Drake even seems like a step above them. Like I remember a couple of years ago, Post Malone came close for streams, and it was like, oh, the next year he sort of fell off. And then even Travis Scott, the one year's album was the most streamed album, but 50% of the streams were Sicko Mode, which was featuring Drake. So it's like he pretty much propped up an album to, you know what I mean? Like they always joke that he like makes careers for people, where he can be on a track with some smaller artist, and that song will get 500 million streams because he's on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. As long as he still has that power and he's sort of wielding it for good, and he hasn't really dropped off. Like his songs are all pretty solid.
Yeah.
I could see him continuing it for longer, and I see he's put enough work down that he will have a legacy forever now. Like being on top for that long is very rare.
Sure.
Yeah,
He's
I just hope
also-
he doesn't like pivot maybe into like business, like something like 50 Cent. Jay-Z's still, I guess, fairly consistent releasing records and stuff, but like, yeah, I just don't want to see him pivot like 50 Cent and like, yeah, maybe we'll find an album, but he's more of a presence. Like people know what he did.
Well, I'm sure after like a while, he probably will settle in and his release schedule will slow down because this is actually pretty nuts, like how much he actually works. I know, like we're sitting here, people complain that Certified Lover Boy hasn't been released yet, but it's not like Scorpion was that long ago, and since then, it's not like he hasn't released anything. He's been releasing songs consistently ever since. So
Yeah, for sure.
he's like working nonstop. He has like his like that Knock the line he's doing with Nike. Like we said, he's building like the stadium and like he's works with the Raptors and all this other stuff. Like he's doing so much. And plus he has like his OVO label where they're releasing other music and putting other people on. So these 10 years he's been working like a dog. So if he wants to take a break, I'd be cool with it. Like if he took like 4 years off, 5 years off to release an album, I wouldn't be like, what, you owe us more music. It's like, no, take a break.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's my only concern too. Is just like, I mean, the guy seems to have like he's got 5 albums over the last 10 years or 12 years, and like it seems like there's always another release like in between that. Like there's never there's no non-Drake moment.
Because even when you look at like when you say that, it just seems off because in reality, he has like so many other like mixtapes and stuff where you have to look at So Far Gone, Scary Hours. Like or Scary Hours 2, or what a Time to Be Alive. If you're reading this, it's too late. Like he has so many other releases.
Yeah, he's got the Dark Lane demo tapes that came out on
Comeback Fees and More Life. What a Time to Be Alive with Future though, it's underrated. I think it's great. I got a lot of play after the Raptors championship.
Yeah,
rightfully so. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing too. I mean, for even as an outside fan, if you're just watching like the Raptors, you're just a Raptors fan, and then you see like what Drake was doing during like that run, their championship run. It's like how it was so infectious, his energy and stuff like that, and the fact that it wasn't like as a Leafs fan, I always look at him like, oh my God, they're not going to do it, and then they did it, and he was like there the whole time. It was a great thing. It's like, how do you not become a Drake fan after that?
He was a 6th man of the year.
There you go. Yeah, he's rubbing Nick Nurse's shoulders and massaging him and stuff like that. Like it was all good. Like everything was perfect about it. Nobody like
chips with the dip.
What's that?
Got the chips with the dip.
Chips with the dip, exactly.
Whatever the hell he was talking about.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, did you guys have anything else to add or anything that we might have missed before we asked the question? Any final thoughts?
No, I think I'm good.
Oh, one random piece of trivia. Do you guys know what a Drake is?
A Drake?
Yeah.
I hate the Drake. I don't know. I would just think of Seinfeld.
It's actually a male duck.
Oh, yeah. I guess I knew that.
Yeah.
Is that what his name is derived from, though?
No, well, it's his middle name. I don't know what his parents were thinking when they named him, but yeah, it's just his middle name.
You look like a duck. We'll go with Drake.
Aubrey?
It's a great name. Like, it's a great middle name, or it's a great, like, I mean, it's like corny, but at the same time, it works, right? Like, better than being a female duck, I guess, if you're Drake.
You think he would have been as successful if he went by Aubrey Graham?
Yeah. Or Mallard?
Maybe. I'll say no. I think Drake is just like that one shot. It's like it's a strong name on its own. Even if
like Madonna
show name, it's like his actual name. Aubrey Graham. You don't. Is it a male, a female? It sounds like they're instantly doing alternative hip hop. Like I don't know.
Yeah, he's like a Madonna. Drake, just one name.
Yeah, there you go, just the one. Yeah. So yeah, short answer. I think Drake adds as opposed to being Aubrey or Audrey. Aubrey, sorry. Okay, so yeah, I guess we can ask the question. Is this album essential? Who wants to go first, or do you guys want me to go first?
You can go first.
Go for it, Gordon.
Yeah, I'll say it's essential. For me, it's the album. It would be my go-to if I were to introduce anybody to Drake. Well, I don't even know what my go-to is now to introduce anybody to Drake. People introduce me to Drake now, but I like it. I think it's one of his it's not easily. It's one of his most consistent albums, and it's pretty good overall from top to bottom. I know, we say like there's a few tracks in there towards the end, but I mean, if you compare it to the other albums, most of the other albums are longer. I think there's one that's shorter than this album. So I think it's a great album, and it's got great tracks. Even now, they're still all bangers. So I'll say yes, it's essential.
Yeah, I had like a weird thought because I'm like, part of it's like, yeah, if I had to pick like a Drake album, it probably would be Take Care, but it's like Drake is almost like a different breed of artist nowadays where he's of the internet. I know these were released on CD originally and stuff, but he seems way more of like the streaming age where his almost like his what his essential work would be is like jumping into a this is Drake playlist on Spotify or something.
Yeah.
Because like even like as solid as this album is, it does sort of like get long in the tooth and sort of does lose my interest. So like as an album, like is this album really that good? Yes, like it has a bunch of great songs, but it's also too long. It's that weird sort of it's missing that element. Like I want to call it essential, but I'm having a hard time doing it just because of how uneven it is.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to introduce someone to Drake, I'd probably be more inclined to say like, just go on Spotify and hit play and let it go.
Yeah.
Like do that. Like there's no difference in doing that and playing this album. Like yes, you're gonna get different styles of songs and stuff, but I don't know. Maybe in 10 years,
gonna get
maybe in 10 years after he's like slowed down on releasing stuff, I can look back and be like, yeah, this Take Care was the shit. But I don't know. Like I'm some like Scorpion. I think that album was just as great. And like he has so much great stuff. Like he's just such an important artist overall. It's hard to even just pick one thing. So
yeah.
Sorry, and just to add on to that, like I think the whole thing is like he's still very consistent. Like other than like a lot of the other bands we tend to talk about, it's like they have kind of set albums. Like these were the albums from that day. But Drake's kind of like he's still relevant. Like he's still making like if you want to hear the newer stuff, just put on his newest release. Like exactly what you're saying. So it depends what you want to hear of Drake. Like even some of the beats on this album are almost dated because they're 10 years old. Like this is the most current up to date recording artist out right now.
Yeah.
Whereas
like what you were saying, if I was to recommend if someone had never heard Drake before and they're like, oh, what's one album to like throw on? I probably would say Take Care, but is it his like best album? Is it his most important? Probably his most important. So for that reason, it'd probably be essential. But I think it's more essential to just listen to his like best of sort of like as corny as that sounds. He's just like of a different era where some of his, like you were saying, Gordon, some of his best tracks are literally just singles or just like a 2-pack or something. So he kind of lives in a different world. So I feel like we almost have to approach him different.
Yeah.
So like if you want the old school answer, I would say sure it's Take Care, but for a new school answer, just go on Spotify. Let Spotify take you for a ride, or just search him on YouTube and just hit play and let a playlist go. You know what I mean? Like he has so many great singles. Like it's hard to just be like he's more of like a singles guy. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
I pretty much exactly what you're saying. He's like a singles guy. Like if you were gonna introduce somebody to Drake, if you gave them Take Care, there's just not enough of what are the like some of the biggest stuff he's done. Like there's just too much filler for it to be, that intro album. You need like at this point maybe you need a great playlist, the Spotify playlist.
Yeah, unless like he made like because it's not like his album is. He doesn't really have like a concept album where like every song is like, about this or about that. It's like he sort of has like his ongoing sort of premises of breakups and success.
It's his brand. It's all part of his brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's but this doesn't like this is. I guess it gives a good sense for his brand, but like that whole crying in the shower or whatever. But there's a lot more that he does and that he's done since and stuff. So like. I feel like it would be a disservice to say, "Oh, listen to Take Care," then you'll get to know Drake. There's not enough of Drake there for it to be essential. I want to I don't know what to call Drake's essential because
honestly, if this would
he's
have
an essential artist, I don't know what his discography.
If this would have ended at track 12, maybe I'd be like, yeah, this album's like a solid listen through. But just the fact that it keeps going, he kind of plays into that whole. These are just a bunch of songs. And if that's what you're doing to me, then that's how I'm going to view your career, right? You're just releasing a bunch of songs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll just play a bunch of songs at once.
I think that's a valid point. Like that guy, like we mentioned before, he kind of blurs the line between album and playlist. Like everything's interchangeable. So it's like, well, you're breaking the rules of an album more or less. So Yeah, no, I totally get that argument.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for especially what he's doing. Just shovel.
Well, how many other recording artists can you say that about?
Yeah, because he's on, like, he's doing us a favor by just giving us singles and big songs and new songs to listen to like every 6 months.
Yeah. It's the stuff to listen to in the backyard during a barbecue.
Even think about it. Like you said, the biggest song on the album is not even on the album. Like,
yeah, that's a perfect microcosm of like my feelings towards it. The biggest song from this wasn't even on it. So.
So no, that's a good answer. I guess Drake. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we end it?
Listen to Drake.
Yeah, I mean, if you've never heard of him, check him out.
What though? Listen to it all. Just hit shuffle
and get ready for the last 10 years of music to play.
Yeah.
So I guess with that we'll wrap it up. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for following along. We appreciate it. You can find us on Anchor or Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. I'm not sure what album we're doing next week. I think we're changing things up a little bit. We'll leave it a mystery for now.
And then we might hit you with 2 next week.
We'll try and squeeze it in. I know we're a little bit late with this episode, but we're looking forward to what's coming out in the next couple episodes. Original music by Ryan Dugal and artwork by Vincent Tran.
See y'all.
See you guys.